stereophonic recording, the feeling of space and perspective is brought to you.
Hello and welcome to the 4th episode of the Silent Feedback Podcast. I'm your host Josh, and for today's episode, I'm going to be doing an album review of The Roots, Illadelph Halflife. This is an album that I've actually never listened to before, but I've always been a fan of The Roots. The Roots is a hip-hop group, and what makes them different from other hip-hop groups is they actually have members who play instruments. So it has that kind of mixture between rock and rap, but you know, the instrumentation is more jazzy. So it's kind of like a jazz rap, but you know, all the members actually do play instruments, except you have the two rappers in Black Thought and Malik B. So yeah, for this review, we're doing Illadelph Halflife. This is the 3rd studio album by The Roots. Their debut album was called Ordnex, which was released in 1993, and then they followed that up with their 2nd studio album, Do You Want More, which was released in 1995. So this album, Illadelph Halflife, was released on September 24th, 1996. The label that this album was released under was DGC Records. And the producer for this album, well, there's multiple producers for this album, which is very common in hip-hop music, where, you know, on each track, you would get different producers and give, you know, each track a different type of sound for the rappers to rap over. So on this album, the producers you have are The Roots. You have Q-Tip, who, if you don't know who Q-Tip is, he was a member of A Tribe Called Quest, which was another hip-hop group in the 90s. He was also a member of the U.M.A.R.S, which the U.M.A.R.S was a production group that was made up of Q-Tip, J.D., who later went by J Dilla, who's a legendary producer, and Ali Shaheed Muhammad, who's also a member of A Tribe Called Quest, and he did most of the production for the Tribe Called Quest. Another producer on this album was Raphael Saadiq, who was a member of the R&B group Tony. You also have Slim Kid Trey, who was one of the founding members of the Far Side. You have Kenyatta Sanders, also known as Kilo. You have Chaos, LAJ, and then Scott Storch, who was actually the former keyboardist for The Roots, and he gets writing and producing credit on one of the songs on this album. So now let me just go over the members of The Roots, because it's a really big band. Because like I said, you know, they have an actual band of people who play instruments, and then they have 2 rappers who rap over that. So the 2 rappers in The Roots are Black Thought and Malik B. They're the ones that rap over this whole album. You also have Questlove. He's the drummer, and Questlove and Black Thought are like the 2 members you think of when you think of The Roots. They've been there forever. They've been best friends forever. And now The Roots actually have a gig playing on the Jimmy Fallon show. So that's where a lot of people know them from. But obviously they're a legendary hip-hop group that started in the 90s. So yeah, like I said, you have Black Thought and Malik B as rappers. You have Questlove on the drums. At this time, you had Kamal Gray on the keyboards. You had Leonard Hubbard on the bass. They also call him Hub throughout this album and in other music. That's kind of his nickname. You have Raphael on the beatboxing. So what's really cool with this band is they would use unique forms of instrumentation, whether it's jazz instruments like a saxophone, you know, like trumpet, but also they would use beatboxing, which is like that traditional 80s hip-hop form that kind of went out of style in the 90s, but I like how they still implemented that in their music. And Raphael was a famous beatboxer who I actually know because he was on SSS Tricky, which is a snowboarding video game made by EA in the early 2000s, and he had like a lot to do with that soundtrack, so that's how I know him from. but he's an amazing beatboxer. And also had Scratch. He was also another beatboxer who was a member of the band. So in terms of singles for this album, there's 3 singles. They had Clones featuring Dice Raw M.A.R.S. They had Concerto of the Desperado. And they have What They Do featuring Raphael Saadiq. So all 3 of these songs had their own music video, and all of them actually did relatively good. What They Do is probably like the most famous song from this album. It has like the most listens on Spotify, and a lot of people know that music video. It's kind of iconic, and there's a little bit of a story behind that I'll get into later. Now, in terms of genres for this album, according to Wikipedia, it has this underground hip hop and jazz rap. I would consider this probably firmly in the jazz rap category, which was very popular at the time with groups like Tribe Called Quest, Diggable Planets, Souls of Mischief. It was very popular at this time in the underground hip hop scene. In terms of the album cover, the album cover for this album is pretty simple. It's just the Root members posing for the picture in front of a street corner in Philadelphia, which is where the Roots are from. And it has this sepia tint, this kind of brown tint over the picture, and it says the Roots Illadelph Halflife on it. In terms of reception for this album got a lot of positive reviews. Rolling Stone gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The Source gave it a 4.5 out of 5. The New York Times called it one of the best rap albums of the year. This album, when it came out, got a lot of positive reviews. Their next album, Things Fall Apart, that's the album that most people consider to be their best album. It is the one that's really well regarded. So this one sometimes gets forgotten about because that one was just so well regarded by critics and fans. But this one, did get a lot of positive reviews. And also want to make some notes that I found. The master tapes for this album were actually destroyed in a fire at the Universal Studios backlot in 2008, which is really sad. There's actually a lot of master tapes for bands, big bands like Alice in Chains, Nirvana, obviously the Roots, U2. So there's a lot of bands that lost their master tapes in that fire in the Universal Studios backlot because they were under the DGC label at the time. And then another note that I just found really interesting. So on the tracking list on this album, on the vinyl, it shows the first track is number 34. And the reason they're doing that is they're combining the first 2 albums and making this all seem like one whole project. So the first album, Ornyx, had 17 tracks, and then Do You Want More at 16 tracks, so a total of 33 tracks. So the first song would technically be the 34th track if this was all one album. And they continue to do this even to this day, where now they're up to the 170th track is like the first track on the newest album. So I think Questlove explained he wanted their albums to feel like all one project, which is kind of a cool, interesting thing that I don't see a lot of bands doing. I honestly, I was surprised when I heard about that because I just listened to it off of Spotify, so I did not know about that, but that's really interesting. So now I'm gonna go over the songs of the album, my thoughts on these songs, if I like them or if I don't, a little bit history on them, and then after that I'm gonna give my final thoughts on the album, my review, and who I would recommend it for. So the album starts off with the intro. This is like a 30-second intro that it's just random talking clips of people talking about the Roots music. So it kind of just gives like a little bit of setting of what this album's about, what the Roots are about. It was a fine little intro. But the first real song is called Respond/React. This was produced and written by the Roots and Kilo, who was the one of the producers I mentioned earlier. So the intro of this song starts off with this kick pattern, and the keys, which I thought was a great way to start it off because it kind of builds the anticipation, gets you hyped. And obviously Questlove is one of the best hip-hop drummers of all time, so his kick patterns just really get you into it. I love the sound of the kick, and I think this is a great intro song that is really just a song of the Roots introducing themselves to the listener, talking about where they're from, which is Philly. They make real hip-hop, and that they want to create this culture of respond react, which is like the old school back and forth where MCs would just give verses back and forth, and it's just this real hip-hop feel, which I love. It has Black Thought and Malik B are both rapping on this verse, who are the two rappers of the Roots, and they both go back and forth, which gives that respond react feeling to this song. The beat is a very classic 90s feeling beat. Has those heavy claps, almost like those 808 claps. Has that sub bass kick throughout, thumping. It helps, makes your head want to nod just along with the beat. And then I love this, it has this piano giving this kind of haunting alternate notes, really fast playing in the background that you can kind of hear. So it gives this very like menacing dark vibe as they're talking about, growing up in Philly and the culture there. Black Thought really kills his verse in this song, and Black Thought is one of those rappers who are really underrated because people always talk about Andre, of course Eminem, Jay-Z, Nas, but Black Thought was killing it back in the 90s, man, and into the 2000s. I mean, in this album he really doesn't give a bad verse, and man, he's one of, in my opinion, one of my top 5 rappers of all time, easily, just because of just the way he flows on the beat and just his messaging. I mean, he doesn't rap about all that traditional, just money and fame and all that stuff. He just raps about real hip hop stuff, So I really love his verse on this song. I think he kills it. He's very lyrical, and he just has a great voice for rapping. Some rappers, they have great messages, but they just don't have the voice. He has the voice plus the message, which I think is great for his rapping. Then you have Malik B, who is kind of the more less talked about MC for the Roots, but I mean, he was flowing on this track. I mean, he just has great flow that I feel like perfectly fit this beat. And this is a classic song. I really enjoyed this song. I feel like they sound really good together, and I thought this was a great opening song for the album. The next song is called Section. This was produced and written by the Roots and Kilo. I like this beat a lot. The beat on the song, it had this very dark, menacing feel, similar to the Respond React beat, with that classic Roots kind of jazz boombot sound that actually reminded me a lot of Atmosphere. Which you don't know Atmosphere, they were an underground hip-hop group from Minneapolis. And they used a lot of this, that jazz haunting beats in their rhymes and their rap songs. So this had that same feel to it. Reminded me a lot of Atmosphere. Questlove just adds amazing drums on this track, and I feel like Questlove is really what makes the Roots stand apart from other bands who have tried similar stuff. Just because he's such a good drummer, and the way he adds in little extra kicks. His snare, sometimes he'll double time it. His hi-hat patterns, I mean, he's just amazing. And the snare sound on this, the producers were the Roots and Kilo. They get the best out of that snare. The snare is just bumping. It really hits really hard. And I was just really enjoying just the instrumentation on this track. But obviously Black Thought is just rapping really good on this song. He talks about, how the Roots are real and how all these other, fake rap stars are around at this time. He used a lot of like Japanese references, a lot of like samurai references and gangster references. That reminds me a lot of Wu-Tang Clan, which was also very popular. 36 Chambers came out in 93, so this was 96. So it's kind of he's using that as definitely, you can hear the inspiration of Wu-Tang Clan honestly throughout this whole album. But in this song in particular, he used a lot of like samurai references and gangster references. I like the chorus of the song a lot. It's about music that makes an impact, that is meaningful. So I like the message there. And then Malik B comes in and he kills his verse too. Again, they work really well together. He does really well on these like dark, menacing beats. I feel like Malik B, because he has this kind of it's a little bit less energetic voice than Black Thought. So I feel like he does really good on these type of beats. Yeah, and then I like Black Thought's bridge. He has this line where he says, "The purpose mainly is to generate the Luther Van lyrical contraband, controlling your command." I love that Luther Vandross reference, and just the way he says it and the way he flows on that bridge is amazing. So yeah, man, I really like that song section. The next song in this album is called Panic. This is kind of like an interlude / song. This was produced and written by The Roots. So it's a shorter song. It's only one verse by Black Thought, but it's basically a story about he's rapping about a kid whom everyone thought was innocent, and he was pretending to be hard, a gangster, wherever, and he was on the street corner pretending like he was selling drugs. And Black Thought comes up to him, tells him, "Man, you gotta stop doing this. You're gonna get mistaken for the wrong person. You're gonna get shot. Stay out of trouble." But he sees out this window, he hears cop cars, and he sees that kid was gunned down the streets. And it just shows how he's just showing how Philadelphia, it's no joke. Kids are getting shot, and you can't be on the street acting tough and then not face those consequences. I like how this beat is very dark and kind of this experimental sound that I feel like really fits the message. It gets you really engaged in what Black Thought is saying, and it sounds different than anything I've heard on the album so far. It has this very sinister feeling beat, and it's a shorter song, but it flows perfectly into the next song, which is It Just Don't Stop. Now this is a song produced and written by The Roots and Kilo again. This song again has a very dark feeling. It flows right in from Panic. It starts off these very chilling vocal chants. Then the beat comes in with that classic Questlove snare and Hubbard on the bass, just coming in super low, like sub bass effect. And it just the jazziness of it with the darkness, it reminds me a lot of something off of Illmatic by Nas. And the way Malik B starts rapping on this, it gives me a very like horrorcore rap feel to it, something like the Ghetto Boys would do. When he talks about the chorus and the verse, he's talking about homicides, rape, guns, death, and how this stuff happens in Philadelphia. And I think it's a great follow-up to the Panic, which is talking about that innocent kid getting shot and killed. This is just telling you, this is what happens in Philly, the violence that happens in the Philly hoods that they're from. I think Malik B really kills his verse on the song. But the thing that stood out to me throughout this whole album, but on this song, I kind of noted that Black Thought, he changes his cadence and his tone to match the beat so well. And on this song, with this beat that comes off just very again, like dark and chilling and just very low subby, I mean, his beat, he just rides it perfectly, the variation that he makes in his flows on different verses just really stand out on the song and create this really cool sound. So obviously Black Thought's one of the best MCs of all time, so it makes sense. So yeah, I really enjoyed It Just Don't Stop. The next song in this album is Episodes featuring Dice Raw. Now this is actually the first song in the album with the guest appearance. You have Dice Raw, who's a rapper out of Philly, and this song was produced by Chaos and Questlove. It was written by The Roots, Dice Raw, and Jazzy Fat Nasties, who were like these two female like R&B group that you hear starting off the songs, kind of singing the chorus. That has this very dark, chilling, again, the tone of this album so far has this very just dark chillingness to it that almost sounds, this song in particular almost sounds like something off of like a classic horror movie, that type of like 1960s horror movie soundtrack mixed with this jazz rap beat to it, but this song is about crime episodes that happen in their neighborhood and how this is happening all the time. So Dice Raw, when he comes up on the beat, he sounds a lot like Biggie to me. He has that kind of nasally inflection that just fits this beat so well. It just comes in really hard. Again, sounds just like something that's like straight up from the 90s, just that hard, true hip-hop sound that I love. I really love his opening line for this track, Dice Raw. It says, this is for all my niggas that are RIPs. You ain't missing nothing. Life ain't what it should be. I think that's a really potent thought, that he's saying about how, people who have died, his friends who had died, they're not missing anything because life, it's terrible where they're at. They're going through so much stuff. So I really enjoyed Dice Raw's verse on this track. I think it was really well done. Then you have Black Thought and Malik B. They also killed their verse on this track. Yeah, man, this is a really good track. And so far, I've liked every song that I listened to up to this point. I was really getting into this album. I'm like, man, this is amazing. And then the next song is called Push Up Yolida, and this is featuring Bahamadia, I think that's how you pronounce it, who was a rapper from Philly, a female rapper who had her debut album in the 90s, did really well, so she kind of had some buzz at this time, but she never really hit the mainstream like some other female rappers at the time, like Lil' Kim and like Lauryn Hill, but yeah, Push Up Yolida, that was the next song with featuring Bahamadia. It was produced by The Roots and Kilo, and then written by The Roots and Bahamadia. I think it's Bahamadia, maybe. Yeah, man, I really like the drums on this beat. You could tell Questlove is playing the drums on this song. Some of the other songs, you could tell he's playing the drums, but they use electronic drums or some type of like samples over it. This song, you can really just hear it's the raw acoustic drums. The beat, again, is very dark. It has this really cool water sounding effect that sounds very experimental. And then the chorus, basically the song's about, it's kind of a stoner song. A lot of hip-hop albums in the 90s, they usually include like one kind of weed song, stoner song. And this is basically just telling stoners put their lighters up, represent and all that stuff. I didn't really like the chorus that much. I didn't feel like the flow of it, the how the words fit into each bar really fit the beat well. It just didn't feel like it was fit. Felt like it was kind of it just didn't feel like it fit the beat. But I mean, Black Thought and Malik B, again, amazing rapping on this song. And Bahamadia, she has a very short verse, but I like her style. It's just very unique. It has this very whispery type tone that I feel like stands out. So it was a good verse. I really liked it. It was just really short. It was like in the latter half of the song, very short, and you can easily miss it. But up to this point, this is probably my least favorite song on the track, on the album. It's still a very good song, but for me, up to this point, the previous songs were just all like, amazing. And this song comes on, and just the chorus didn't really fit well. And it didn't have a lot of substance in terms of the message. So, this is probably one of my least favorite tracks so far on this album. But yeah, they follow that up with What They Do. That's the next track, featuring Raphael Saadiq. Now, this is the first single to appear on this album. It's not necessarily the first single they released, but of the 3 singles, this is the first one to appear on the album so far. This was produced and written by The Roots and Raphael Saadiq, who again was a former member of Tony, which was an R&B group from the 80s and 90s. And, you know, this is a classic hip-hop song. You know, like I said earlier, this is the one people remember from this album. It has the most listens on Spotify. And, you know, this is just that classic 90s boom bop jazz rap. You know, the intro is just so good, has this very jazzy feel to it, and it makes you, you know, smooth jazz with rap music, rap beats with a great rapper. I mean, that's just a perfect combination for me, you know. And I feel like the 90s were filled with that. And this is one of those classic songs, you know. Hub and Quest are killing it on this. Hub on the bass, I mean, that bass line's amazing. And then the drums, you know, the drums really stand out on this track. The snare is just like so powerful when it hits. And then the guitar playing, there's this amazing guitar playing over this very jazzy feel to it, that I'm pretty sure is Raphael Saadiq. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure because he did play guitar, I'm pretty sure that he's providing the guitar playing on this. But either way, I mean, the guitar playing is amazing on this song, and it really makes it stand out from, you know, the other songs we've heard on this track so far. You know, the other on this album so far. Other songs on this album have been very dark and menacing and just talking about the gritty side of, you know, living in the hood and all that stuff. And this song is just more of like a radio hit. You can tell that they were just trying to make a song that had this just great, you know, like Tribe Called Quest feel to it, and they succeeded perfectly. And the song itself is about how industry rappers are only in it for the money and fame, while the Roots are in it for, you know, true hip hop, for the art of the music, which I love that message. I think that's so true to who the Roots were. So I love the message. I love the sound of the song, getting that very classic jazz rap sound. And then there's that soul, the chorus, Not What They Do, where Raphael Saadiq is just singing on that. It just sounds so smooth. It just makes your head want to bounce. Amazing song. Black Thought, and this is a song actually where Black Thought is the only rapper on it. So you just hear Black Thought rapping throughout the whole song, and I think he kills all his verses. You know, especially his last verse is just amazing. And here's a little note about this, a little bit of controversy. The music video for this song was basically a parody of like the 90s hip-hop music videos of the time, where it had Black Thought and the Roots. They're in this mansion in front of a pool. They had like women dancing in front of them and you know, bikinis. They were drinking champagne, and they were just like chilling at this mansion while Black Thought's rapping, which honestly to me just on itself just looks cool. But it's a parody of a lot of the rappers at that time who were doing similar stuff like this. That was very popular. And throughout the music video, you see a scene where they're on the streets and he's in a club and he's playing, and there's other members he's playing with who aren't the Roots. And you know, then at the end of the music video, the Roots come in, they take back their instruments and they start playing with them. You know, on the street, he you know, starts hanging. He brings his friends back in, and at the pool party, they take the girls off the tables, and it's kind of showing how, like, you know, this isn't who the Roots are. The Roots aren't, you know, these traditional mainstream rappers who just rap about, you know, women and money. They're rapping about real hip hop stuff. So it's like, it's cool how later on the music video it kind of gets back to the main you know, theme of who the Roots are, which I think is kind of a cool story. But the controversy is this music video, Biggie Smalls, you know, aka the Notorious B.I.G., obviously an extremely famous rapper during the 90s, he thought this song was parodying his music video of his song One More Chance, which also had this similar look to it, whereas him with women dancing in front of him at a pool party. So he thought the Roots were ripping off this song, parodying his song, and he was offended by this because he was actually a big fan of the Roots, and he felt like he gave them nothing but love. So he was really hurt by that. And Questlove actually wrote an apology to Biggie, but unfortunately he died. He was shot and killed I think in 97, but he died before he could read the apology. So, it's kind of a sad, into that story, but it is interesting. A lot of people don't, at least for me, I don't really think about the Roots and Biggie being in the same kind of area, even though they both do hip-hop. It's just the Roots are more kind of the underground jazzy hip-hop, where the Biggie was more mainstream, traditional gangster rap. So it's interesting, that little story about how Biggie was actually a fan of the Roots and how he was kind of hurt by that music video. So the next song on this album is called Question versus Scratch, which really is basically saying Questlove versus Scratch. Obviously Questlove is the drummer for the Roots, and then Scratch was a beatboxer for the Roots. So this song was produced and written by Questlove and Scratch. It's a pretty short song. I think it's a little over a minute long. And it's purely instrumental, where it's Questlove on the drums and then Scratch beatboxing, kind of going back and forth, which I thought was a really cool interlude. This album, having these interludes makes this album feel really epic. Makes it feel very much like a conceptual album, where they weren't just throwing together, their 10 best songs. They're actually putting effort into what was on this album, and I like having this interlude that kind of like breaks up all the traditional rap songs. So I thought it was really good. It also shows off Scratch's talent as a beatboxer, which he's amazing. Because at first when I listened to this, because I listened to the album, probably like 3 or 4 times. First time I listened to this, I thought that was literally a DJ scratching. I didn't know it was actually a beatboxer. So Scratch, is really a talented beatboxer, and it really shows on this track. The next track is called Concerto of the Desperado. This was produced by Kilo, and this was written by the Roots and Kilo. This is the second single to appear on the album so far, and this is the first beat on this song that kind of switches up the formula. It's still very dark, like a lot of the songs were on this album, other than like what they do, but this one has more of this like mafia sounding feel to it. It reminds me a lot of the song, if you heard the song Paparazzi by Exhibit, where which was actually used in the show Sopranos, which makes sense because it has this very like mafia feeling sound to it. This song just very dark. There's a saxophone sample that you hear throughout, and you hear this woman singing like an opera type singing. She has this operatic voice that goes throughout the background, so it gives you this very like Italian coast kind of mafioso vibe to it. And even the music video that they filmed is just them all in all white, kind of on the coastline, and it kind of gives you this like mafia feel. This song is only Black Thought on this. He does the whole chorus and all the verses, which is as we've seen so far, there's a couple songs like that where it's just Black Thought. And then, song again is just about the Roots, showing that the Roots are real, and all this other, fake hip-hop stuff has to go, and the Roots are just true hip-hop. They represent the true hip-hop feel. They're not into all the other, all the other bullshit that was happening in the hip-hop with the mainstream, and just talking about, women, money, clothes type stuff. Black Thought kills his 2 verses on this song and the chorus. I mean, he has a really great chorus on this, and I love there's like this glitchy effect that he uses on his second verse actually, where he says vibrato, and it has this glitchy effect that goes on the vibrato line, and I love that effect. And I love how this song, again, it makes sense that this is a single because it stands out on the track as just a very well produced song that just shows off Black Thought's rapping and just how great of a rapper he is, and how great of production the Roots are. So I really enjoyed this song. It's one of my favorite songs on the album for sure. So that's Concerto of the Desperado. The next song on this album is called Clones, featuring Dice Raw and M.A.R.S. Dice Raw and M.A.R.S. Dice Raw, who's on a song earlier. Let me see. He was on Episodes earlier in the album. He comes back, and again, he's a Philly rapper, And then M.A.R.S was another Philly rapper. These are both kind of underground rappers who didn't, I never heard before before hearing this album. So they're kind of underground. But yeah, man, this song was produced by Kilo. It was written by The Roots, Kilo, Dice Raw, and M.A.R.S. And this is the final single to appear on this album. So this was the last of the 3 singles. So they had the 2 back and forth. So kind of how it's kind of a layered is the singles are kind of all pushed together with what they do. They have the the little Questlove scratch interlude. Then you have a Concerto of the Desperado, and then Clones, which is the 3rd single. So they have them all kind of put together on this album. But yeah, man, this is like the posse cut of the album. That was you have all 4 rappers each having 1 verse. And it's very reminiscent of Wu-Tang Clan. This sounds like straight up a Wu-Tang Clan song. Straight from 36 Chambers. Has that very simple raw beat with the keys and the drums, and it's basic. You're not even thinking about the beat. You're just focusing on the rapping, and that's what they want you to focus on. And I mean, that's what they do with this song. I mean, M.A.R.S starts off the song, and he sounds exactly like Ghostface Killah from Wu-Tang Clan. I mean, exactly like him. Honestly, you close your eyes, you would think it's just slight differences, but it's like, man, he sounds a lot like Ghostface on this verse. Though, I mean, that's a great thing, because Ghostface is, again, one of the best rappers in Wu-Tang, and he is just, he just has this hard sounding voice, this gritty voice that, just is amazing, and he kills this verse. I mean, M.A.R.S, again, basically unknown rapper. I haven't heard of him, but man, he kills this verse in this song. His one opportunity, he kills it. He has the first verse. It's amazing, just very street, very raw. I love it. Then you have Black Thought goes, and he goes next, and he obviously murders his verse like he usually does. Amazing wordplay. Then you have Dice Raw, who after his album, I'm a huge fan of Dice Raw, man. His again, he sounds like Biggie Smalls to me, and he says this vocal tone that I feel like really fits this beat so well. He has he's just so hard on this verse, again, this song reminds me so much of a Wu-Tang song, and he's just rapping his ass off on this verse. I mean, it's amazing. And then in between each verse, they have this little interlude that I read was like a sample of a Quincy Jones song. So they have this again, this is a very basic beat foundation around just rapping, just straight true hip hop. And then the last verse on this is Malik B, who again, I feel like doesn't get a lot of credit in this group because he's with Black Thought, who's like one of the greatest of all time. But I mean, he kills his verse too. So it's like, this is again one of my favorite songs, probably my favorite song in general on this album. And it's because it's rare. It's rare when you have a beat that's so basic and you just have all 4 rappers just killing it. Usually when you have these posse cuts, you have one rapper who you may not like as much as the others, or he kind of puts the thing down. But all 4 rappers are killing it. Have great. They sound great together. They're all riding on the beat perfectly. And it just reminds you of the Roots are just true hip hop, man. They just have that true hip hop sound that I really appreciate, and I feel like it's gone nowadays with so much of this mumble rap crap that's out there. So it's like, man, this is just just true hip hop sound that I love. So that's Clones, featuring Dice Raw and M.A.R.S. And then the next song is Universe at War. This was featuring Common. This was produced by Chaos and then written by The Roots and Common. When I first heard this song, I thought it was really cool that they got Common on this on their album, because I was a big Common fan. I've listened to a lot of his albums, and I just like the way his style is very poetic, and just I think he works really well on these jazzy beats. He's not. I feel like he's not like the greatest just rapper in terms of just freestyling and just giving these really cool bars. He's just more of a flow rapper. I mean, his flow is amazing. He really rides these jazz beats really well. He has this almost spoken word kind of flow to him that I really enjoy. So I thought it was really cool that the Roots got Common on this track, and they made kind of this Chicago versus Philly type vibe to the track, because obviously Common's from Chicago and then the Roots are from Philly. Now the problem with this track, and one reason why I didn't really enjoy this track that much, is because of the beat. I didn't like the beat on this track. I feel like, especially coming off of Clones, which was a very simple raw beat, there's just way too much going on in this beat. You can barely hear Questlove's drumming because there's just so many different samples, and I feel like the samples aren't cut well, so it's just it comes in and out. One of the samples is really kind of overbearing. Obviously the snare still hits really hard, so you can still bob your head to it, but yeah, man, I wasn't really feeling this beat, and I feel like, Common and Black Thought, they didn't. I blame the beat on this. It's just like they rap good, but it just didn't click with me because the beat just felt off. And but I do like the concept of Common and Black Thought going back and forth on this song, where it's like Common raps a verse, then Black Thought, then Common and Black Thought. So I really thought that was cool. I think Common is a great feel rapper, and Black Thought's just a great rapper, period. And so when you listen to this song, obviously Black Thought's verses are on like a whole nother level than Common's in terms of the wordplay and how lyrical they are. But I still like Common's style on this song. But I mean, Black Thought's second verse on this song is so good. I mean, it's one of my favorite verses on the album. If I would recommend one verse to listen to Black Thought's second verse on Universe at War. It's amazing. Yeah, man, I again, this song, I'm kind of bittersweet about it. I'm kind of indifferent just because I want to love this song, but it's disappointing because the beat just, I feel like let down the rapping, and the rapping's so good that I feel like they need to include a better beat on this. I would include something a little bit more jazzy, a little bit more raw, maybe a little less samples on this. And this is actually the first track, I'm pretty sure, that was produced by Chaos. So you can tell there's a different producer on this for sure. But yeah, man, this is probably, up to this point, one of my least favorite tracks on the album. But it's still good. If someone said, I really like this track, I wouldn't blame them. I think I could see why people would like it because that's Common and Black Thought. But yeah, man, it was a little disappointing for that track. But the next track is called No Alibi. This was also produced by Chaos and The Roots. And this was written by The Roots. And contrary to the last song, I really like the beat on this song. It has, again, a beat that I feel like would fit good in the last song. It has this very smooth jazz sounding beat, but it has these dark undertones that I feel like, again, is the theme of this album. This dark feeling to it, and the dark undertones with the jazz just fit really well for the Black Thought and Malik B's rapping. Another great drum beat by Questlove. I mean, the snare is just hitting so hard in this track. I mean, you can't help it but bob your head to this. I like, there's like a vocal sample in this with very light keys that has this kind of this kind of mafia sound to it that reminds me of Concerto of the Desperado. I'm happy also that Malik B is back rapping on this song. It's been a couple songs. So you had the one with Common that you kind of forget, and then you had the Clones one, which was like the posse cut, which Malik B was on, but again, he wasn't the main person on that track. Concerto of Desperados before that, and that was just Black Thought. So you basically have to go, and then what they do is just Black Thought. So you basically have to go back to Push Up Your Lida. That was like the last song where it's really the Black Thought and Malik B rapping on it. So it's great to hear Malik B back rapping. I feel like he gives a great verse on this song, and then of course Black Thought kills it too. I think the chorus was really good on this song. It really fit the beat and fit the tone, fit the theme of this song, which again is that mafioso theme of like, we commit the crime, but we're not going to admit that we commit the crime. I mean, we're not going to admit that we're not going to sell out, our friends. we're not gonna snitch on anyone. We have no alibi. You know, we're owning up to it. So I really like the theme of this song. I feel like the beat and the chorus just really fit the rapping. So that was No Alibi. The next song is another interlude, which again, I like these interludes because they kind of break up all the rapping and they kind of give it this more epic feel to the album. This one's called Dave vs. Us. This was produced by The Roots and written by The Roots and Dave Murray. Now, this is a very short interlude. It's actually less than a minute long. And it's basically Dave Murray. He was a saxophonist, very famous jazz saxophonist that they got on this track. And then they had Raphael was a member of The Roots, and he was one of the beatboxers. So they had Scratch's interlude earlier where he was beatboxing versus Quest. Now this is Raphael versus Dave Murray, who's a saxophonist. And you have Dave Murray doing these crazy licks on saxophone. Then you have Raphael kind of mimicking these licks just through beatboxing. He has this almost like fake horn sounding sound over Questlove's drumming that kind of goes back and forth with Dave Murray. And I think this is really cool because, again, it breaks up the album, breaks up the, you know, your ears don't get tired when you're listening to this, because this is a long album. I mean, this is an over hour long album. So I think it's great to have these interludes. And then this kind of, with Raphael beatboxing at the end, I think it's Black Thought who says, man, we don't have to pay you, you know, because we got Raphael, basically talking to Dave. And it flows into the next song, which is No Great Pretender, which has Raphael doing that same beatboxing sound on this song. When he's beatboxing on this song, he has that same sound and almost even like the same pattern, the same melody. So it's kind of cool where you have Black Thought saying like, man, we don't need you, Dave, we got Raphael, and then it goes straight into Raphael doing that beat he played versus Dave. So I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, like I said, the next song is called No Great Pretender. It's produced and written by The Roots. It has a very smooth beat to it. Again, this very mafioso sound that I feel like the last couple of songs have gone into. And then this song, the difference between this song is Questlove is actually not on the drums on this song. It's actually Raphael doing the beatboxing and in place of Questlove doing the drums, which gives it a whole different vibe to it. Another difference on this song, which makes it unique, is this is a Malik B cut, where it's just Malik B rapping over the song and there's no Black Thought. So I thought that was interesting. I think the problem with the song is just the beat. I think the beat's good, and I think Malik B's rapping is good. I just don't think they flow well together because the beat is just very laid back. Like I said, on that kind of mafia feeling tip where it's just very dark and just very laid back, not a lot of jazz to it. And Malik B, in terms of rapping, he's just a very kind of chill rapper. And I feel like you have to have the opposites over each other, where you either have a chill rapper on a hard beat or, you know, hard rapper on a chill beat type thing. And I feel like when you have the chill rapper on a very chill beat, sometimes you know they sound kind of sleepy on it. You know, they sound very just, it's almost too chill, and you listen to it and you're not bored, but you're just kind of, it doesn't stand out to you. And I feel like that's the problem with this track. It's not a bad track. I think it's okay, but I think it could be better if the beat fit Malik B's rapping better. And I feel like you know, it kind of sucks that this is his one track where he's by himself, and I feel like it's not the greatest track. I feel like the beat and his rapping style just don't flow well together. But yeah, man, that was No Great Pretender. You know, the best thing about this track, you know, I'm happy that Malik B's rapping. And then, you know, the main thing I'm happy about is I like how Raphael gets this chance to shine, where he gets kind of the chance to do the drums in the track and Questlove gets a break. But, you know, it's not my favorite track on the album for sure. The next track is called Hypnotic, featuring D'Angelo, which you don't know D'Angelo. He was an R&B singer of the time that was kind of in the crew with the Roots. I mean, he wasn't a part of the Roots, but he was in that kind of, he was associate of the Roots, you know, with people like Erykah Badu and Common, who you heard earlier, who were doing this kind of like jazz rappy stuff. And D'Angelo was, obviously a very famous R&B singer at the time, and he's great on this track. I mean, he has a very small part just in the chorus and kind of the vocal tones on this track. It sounds like he was just in the studio for like a short period of time just to record those parts. But yeah, man, this is actually a track that's produced by Questlove, L.A.J, and Slim Kid Trey. Slim Kid Trey, again, like I mentioned earlier, was one of the founding members of the Far Side, who also did some production on the Far Side's work. So it's cool that they got him on this. And then the song was actually written by The Roots and Slim Kid Trey, whose voice doesn't actually appear on this, which is kind of interesting. But again, this is a very chill beat, very similar to the last beat, the No Great Pretenders beat that Malik B rapped over solo. I like this beat a little better because I think the keys sound better and it has more of a jazzy feel to it. And then also I think D'Angelo really helps with that because he has his vocal overtones that go throughout the whole beat. So I think this is definitely a better beat. And this is Black Thought's cut, so it's just Black Thought rapping. So in a way, you could compare the Malik B, No Great Pretenders, and the Hypnotic Black Thought songs because they're back to back, where one's Malik B rapping, one's Black Thought rapping on similar beats. And in my opinion, I think Black Thought wins this round with the Hypnotic featuring D'Angelo because I think the beat just sounds better. And I think his voice just works better with this chill beat because, like I said earlier, I think it's one of those things where opposites work well together, and Black Thought has a much more grittier rapping voice. I mean, he can be gritty, he can be smooth. I mean, he's one of the greatest rappers, so he can do a lot with his voice, but he has this kind of like gritty, smooth feel to it. It's kind of a mix on the song that I feel like really fits this beat very well. The chorus is very chill and minimal, and it kind of gets you in this hypnotic trance, which I think is the point because the song's called Hypnotic. And basically it's a song about Black Thought falling for a girl, and she's got him in this hypnotic trance because he can't stop thinking about her. So it's kind of a basic message love song, but the rapping's really good. Again, I think it's interesting how this goes right back. This is a follow-up to No Great Pretender, which again is Malik B's kind of version of a solo track, which I personally feel like this track was better of the two tracks. So that was the Hypnotic featuring D'Angelo. The next song is called Ital, the Universal Side, and this is featuring Q-Tip. This is produced and written by The Roots and Q-Tip, and again, Q-Tip, famously a member of Tribe Called Quest. He was also a member of the production group, the M.A.R.S, like I mentioned earlier, with JD and Ali. So yeah, man, he's a legendary producer, hip-hop producer, and it shows off on this track because the beat comes in hard on this track. The snare is just right in your face, and the thing I love about this track, it brings me back to just a classic Roots sound of just Questlove just killing it on the drums with Black Thought rapping over it, and you can just hear the drums are just strong on this track. Production's amazing. You definitely can hear the influence of Q-Tip on this beat because it has the keys, that kind of jazzy piano sample or playing throughout that gives it a true a Tribe Called Quest feel to it. The chorus is very simple, but I feel like it works, and it's really helped by Quest's drumming. Again, his drumming on this beat is amazing. This song's basically Q-Tip. It's kind of like the Common song, where it's Common and Black Thought going back and forth. This time it's Q-Tip and Black Thought going back and forth. This one's a little bit interesting to me. I like this one a little better because it's cool how they have Q-Tip and Black Thought doing short verses back and forth. So, they'll do a couple of lines, Q-Tip will do a couple of lines, and Black Thought will do a couple of lines. So I think each rapper has like 4 or 5 verses on this song. But they're all short verses until you get to the last verses for both rappers. they're longer, but I like how, you know, it really gives this back and forth feel, because Q-Tip just says some lines, and then Black Thought comes out with some bars, and then Q-Tip comes back. And I like that style for a song like this. Again, the song is basically talking about New York versus Philly, and similar to the Common song, it's just them, basically it's just a song for them to rap over. I like the end, how each MC gets a long verse where they can really just shine. And Q-Tip, you know, I think Common is a better rapper than Q-Tip, but Q-Tip holds his own on this song, and I think I like Q-Tip on this song better than I like Common, just because I like the beat so much better, and I feel like Q-Tip really rides this beat really well. And I mean, Q-Tip is a great rapper. I'm not saying Q-Tip's not a great rapper. In my opinion, I think Common's a better rapper, but I think Q-Tip does a great job on this song, and obviously he's an amazing producer, so he knows how to rap over his type of production. So you know, I think Q-Tip did a great great job on this song. And then of course Black Thought, you know, enough said, he's amazing. So you know, it's not my favorite song on this album, but again, I liked it better than the Common song, and you know, I think this is a great use of the feature of Q-Tip. I feel like he added so much to the production, and just that alone, I think, was just a great just a great addition by the Roots for this album. And this is technically the last like traditional Roots song on this album, the last song where you have two rappers, you know, Malik B, Black Thought, or either or, rapping over the Roots production, instrumentation. Because the next song on this album is called One Shine. It's featuring Joshua Redman and Cassandra Wilson, and this is an instrumental track. So this is produced and written by the Roots and Scott Storch, who, like I mentioned earlier in the review, he is a former keyboardist for the Roots, and I don't know if this was an instrumental track that they made while he was still in the band, because I think I read he left the band in 94 or maybe 95, so it's possible this was kind of the last track he did with them. But man, I love this track. I mean, this is totally instrumental jazz track. It's just a straight up jazz song, with, you know, some vocal parts added in by Cassandra Wilson. She does some like scatting at the end, adds this a little like vocal tones over it. But this is just a straight up jazz track that just shows off how great of musicians the Roots are. And that's the thing that's so cool about the Roots, is like they're a great just jazz band by themselves with, you know, Black Thought, with amazing rappers. I mean, and Black Thought being one of the best rappers of all time on top of that. So it's like, you know, people forget that, you know, the Roots are not just a hip-hop group, they're also just a straight-up jazz band and hip-hop band. And I think, you know, this, I love that they actually let them put, that they put a instrumental track on this, because it really shows how great of musicians the Roots are. And man, I really love this song. It comes in with this the saxophone playing by Joshua Redman, which I forgot to mention. Yeah, he's the saxophonist on this. Comes in with that sax playing by Joshua Redman, who's just killing it, and then that bass by Hub on the bass, Leonard Hubbard on the bass. Honestly left me speechless, because it was just so smooth. You know, it just fit the beat so well, and he just keeps that same groove, the same bass groove throughout the whole song. That just it's amazing. So as the instrumentation grows and progresses and expands, you still have that bass just keeping the foundation. And Questlove, amazing drumming on this song. Again, one of the best hip hop drummers of all time. Just amazing on this song. And honestly, again, like I said, this is one of my favorite songs on the track, on the album, even though there's no rapping on it. You know, some people probably think that's controversial, because, you know, why would you choose a song that doesn't show off the skill of the Roots, who are a hip-hop group? But I feel like, you know, the Roots are also just a band, and I feel like this represents the other half of the Roots, which is like a great band. And they've done instrumental tracks in the future and in the past in other albums. So, you know, I have no problem saying this is one of my favorite songs on the track. I think It's a song I'll definitely recommend. Just on, if you're a jazz fan, if you're a hip hop fan, I think that just the song, the feel of it is amazing. And it's one of the songs too that I don't think it needs rapping, but you could just add Black Thought or the rapper rapping over this, and it would be amazing too. So yeah, man, this is a great song. And like I said, the last the Universal Side featuring Q-Tip, that was kind of the last traditional Roots song on this. So I think it's cool that they ended off with a like a band cut. They had the Malik Beat cut, they had the Black Thought cut, so now they have a band cut, which I think is really cool. The next song on this album is called The Adventures in Wonderland, featuring Ursula Rucker. This was produced by The Roots and then written by Questlove and Ursula Rucker. This is basically a spoken word track that's performed by Ursula Rucker, who is a famous spoken word poet. So she's kind of just doing her spoken word poetry over Questlove's drumming. It's kind of a basic drum pattern that Questlove's doing that I like, that kind of changes as she gets more passionate, more expressive in her poetry. It gets more hyped, and then it kind of slows down. So I think the drumming, obviously Questlove's amazing, but I think the drumming really fits the tone and rhythm that Ursula is providing with her poetry. Basically the spoken word is about a female drug dealer who's kind of like the kingpin, who's growing this drug empire, and she goes to prison for selling crack. She gets caught, and this is her talking about her kind of rise and her fall, her experiences as a drug dealer, and then her experiences in prison. This is a very explicit track. It's Ursula does a great job just describing stuff so specifically and vividly that really paints a picture in your brain of like what her words are visualizing. Like you can see exactly what she's saying. You can picture the scenarios. Again, her wordplay is amazing. And I really was a fan of this track too. I mean, I think it's, again, another unconventional Roots track. But I like that they gave this poet a shine on their album, and I feel like it fits the vibe of the Roots in general and the vibe of this album. It has that jazz feel to it, and traditional jazz, traditional hip hop does have a background in spoken word and poetry. So I really enjoy that they switched it up and they add something like this to the end of the album. So yeah, that was The Adventures in Wonderland featuring Ursula Rucker. And then there's an outro. This is a very short 15-second outro. That's very similar to the intro, and it's just some random talking clips talking about the Roots and their career so far. So yeah, man, that's the album of Illadelph Halflife by the Roots. The top 3 songs of the album for me, this is in no particular order. This was hard to choose. There's a couple songs that I feel like could go in here, but for me, it came down to 3 songs that I chose to be the top 3 in the album. The first is One Shine, which is the jazz cut of the song, the band cut. There's no rapping on that song, but I just love the instrumentation on that song. It really blew me away with the intro, with that bass line. That bass line is amazing. And Questlove's drumming, saxophone playing by Joshua Redman. I mean, it's amazing jazz track, and I feel like it belongs on this album for sure. I think it fits really well with the tone of the album. My second favorite track was Clones. This was the kind of Wu-Tang Clan posse cut they had that featured Dice Raw and M.A.R.S. I mean, this song is just it's just hard. I mean, it's a hard song. It reminds me of, again, like a song from 36 Chambers, Protect Your Neck, Cream type song that Wu-Tang Clan would do. I mean, it's just very simple, dark, just basic drum, raw beat, and just 4 rappers rapping. And I feel like that's true hip hop. That's hip hop when you strip away all the BS. That's just true hip hop right there. And I feel like nowadays there's a lot of rappers who hide behind all this production and trap beats that, get you hyped, but you're not, there's no lyrics to it. There's no real message to it. And Clones to me is just, if I want to show someone true hip hop, especially of the 90s, I mean, Clones is one of those songs that I would show. And I feel like it's underrated when you think of, 90s songs. But I mean, Clones is up there, man. It's a great posse cut by the Roots. And also, it's a great song to show people that the Roots were hard, man. I think a lot of people view the Roots, they know them from Jimmy Fallon's show, and they don't view them a lot as like this hard hip hop band. But man, Clones shows that the Roots had this really hard gangster side to them, and man, the Clones is just a great song that definitely is a top 3 song on this album for me. And then the last song is What They Do. This was a single, probably the biggest song on the track, on the album, their most famous song on this album, and for good reason, because to me this is just a classic 90s hip-hop song. It's a classic. It's one of those songs that I feel like it's gonna go down as a classic. It's already been a classic, and it's one of the best Root songs. It just has that great chorus by what's his name? Raheem Saadiq, I think that's his name, or Raphael Saadiq. Yes, my bad. Raphael Saadiq, his chorus is amazing. The guitar playing is amazing. The instrumentation. Questlove, Hubbard on the bass. I mean, it's just amazing. And then Black Thought just rapping. And this song really shows, I'm having this song as a single and so popular because it just shows how great of a rapper Black Thought is. And that he's definitely a top 10 MC for sure. And for me, top 5. So those are the 3 songs, 3 favorite songs on this album for me, in no particular order. One Shine, Clones, and What They Do. Now in terms of takeaways from this album, the big takeaway I had from this album was Malik B is an underrated rapper. And honestly, the Roots with Malik B and Black Thought being the rappers reminds me a lot of Outkast, where you have Big Boy and Andre 3000, because Big Boy is also an underrated rapper, because when you have 2 of the greatest rappers of all time in Black Thought and Andre 3000 in a group with you, you're gonna be outshined. And I think Malik B does a great job on this album. He's someone that I don't really hear about a lot, but I think he's a great rapper. But Black Thought is he's just one of the best rappers of all time. So it's like, it's so hard to compete with him or even to keep up with him. And I think Malik B, he does a great job with that, but he's never gonna, Black Thought's always gonna come off as better a lot on these verses, on these songs. But again, it reminded me a lot of Outkast, just because Big Boy and Andre 3000 is very similar, where like Andre's one of the greatest rappers of all time, and a lot of songs, Andre's verse is the only one that's talked about. But I feel like if Big Boy and Malik B, if they were on their own, if they did their own song, they would be great rappers in themselves. Malik B, I think, could hold his own album, and same thing with Big Boy. But I think with Malik B being with Black Thought, he kind of gets overshadowed. But yeah, man, Malik B is he's a good rapper for sure. But then let me just talk about Black Thought. Black Thought is on a whole totally different level. For me, he's a top 5 rapper of all time easily. I should do a list of my top 10 rappers, but he's definitely in the top 5 for me. His wordplay, his messaging, his flow, his lyricism, the way his tone, his voice, the way he stays on beat, the way he switches his tone and style to fit the beat. No verse on this album by Black Thought is a miss. I mean, every verse is fire that Black Thought does in this album. Every verse fits the instrumentation, the beat. Yeah, man, he's just amazing on this album. It's incredible. His rapping on this album just puts this album up to where it is in my mind. Black Thought, again, is just and he's not underrated in the sense that people know that he's great, but the casual fan a lot of times forgets about Black Thought when they mention, the best MCs of all time. And I think he's one of the greatest, and I think he definitely deserves his due because he kills on this album for sure. The instrumentation on this album, I want to talk about the instrumentation, the beats, the Roots as a band themselves is just amazing on this album. The Roots, I feel like that's what sets them apart from other group bands like Souls of Mischief, like A Tribe Called Quest, like The Far Side. I mean, these are great bands, great groups, great hip-hop groups, even Outkast, great groups. But having a hip-hop group where you actually have a true band who actually knows how to play their instruments on top of the rapping just adds so much, foundation to this, just adds so much substance to what you're listening to. And it starts off with Questlove. Questlove is one of the greatest hip-hop drummers of all time. I think he kills it on this album. His snare, the way I know that a lot of that's production, but a lot of it too is just the way his timing is on his snare. It's the syncopation of his kick drums, sometimes sneaking in those double kicks or those more complex snare patterns, the hi-hats. I mean, he's just amazing throughout this whole album. It's Questlove. I mean, he's amazing. You have Hubbard on the bass. Hub, I mean, he's amazing on this record too. I mean, the bass stands out to me on basically every track. Has this very smooth jazz feel to it. Amazing riffs, and especially on the song One Shine, which is like the band cut that I really like. Hubbard really stands out with that riff that he creates. I think that's truly amazing on that. The keys were done by Kamal Gray. Keys are on point on this album too. I like the keys really add that jazz element to it, especially on the Q-Tip song, and on a lot of the other songs. That jazz element is really added in by those keys, and it gives it that true jazz rap feel to it. And then the beatboxing by Rahzel and Scratch. Again, a lot of songs, they're just kind of background noises, but there are a couple songs where they really shine out. I think Rahzel shines out in No Great Pretender, which is the Malik B cut. He's great. He replaces Questlove on that track, and his beatboxing, I think, is amazing on that track. Even though it's not my favorite track, I think his beatboxing really shines on that. And the Scratch, I mean, I was blown away by when they did the Scratch versus Questlove interlude, because honestly, I thought Scratch was a DJ. I thought it was actual turntables scratching, but it's just his voice. I mean, he's a really amazing beatboxer, and I feel like having those beatboxers on this album gives it that classic 80s feel to it. That LL Cool J feel that I feel like at that time was kind of going out of style. I feel like the Roots really brought that back with Rahzel and Scratch. But overall, I really enjoyed the rapping on this album. I feel like there's really no bad verses on this album. Even the features, I think, were all really great. Personally, my favorite features were Raphael, Saadiq, Dice Raw, who really impressed me on this. I kind of want to hear more of his stuff. He's really good on this album. And then Q-Tip. I really enjoyed Q-Tip's feature. Common, too, I think was great. Even though I didn't enjoy the beat as much, I think his rapping style is just still really, really cool. And I definitely want to review one of the Common albums, because I think he's another one that's, not underrated, but some people forget about Common. But yeah, overall, this album, it felt very epic. It felt conceptual. I don't know exactly what the concept was. I think it was just showing life in Philly, maybe. And maybe it wasn't a concept album, but it just had that feel to it. The first half of the album was just very dark, very, dealing with the struggle of being in the hoods of Philly, with the murder, the gun violence, the rape, all these terrible crimes and stuff that happens there that's just real, and then the second part of the album felt more like a jazz rappy, There's more smooth parts to it, more of that mafia sound that I thought was interesting. It definitely had some dark beats in there too. But this whole album, the use of experimental beats, the use of interludes, non-rap songs with the last 2 cuts on the album, I think it's just a very all-around great album. It's one of those albums that it just all around, when you listen to it, you feel like you're getting your money's worth, because it has this very epic feel to it. It feels like very complete. And I do want to mention the mixing on this album. This was done by Kilo, who's I feel like is an amazing mixer on this album, and produces a lot of tracks on this album. And I think the mixing really just adds to just the sound of it. I mean, the how all the instruments and the rapping are balanced, I think is very well done. So yeah, man, overall, I'm gonna give this album a 4.5 out of 5. I think this is one of the best hip-hop albums of the 90s. I like the diverse beats, the instrumentation, and just the overall rapping on this album I think is amazing. There were a couple songs I didn't like as much as others, but overall I still think this is an amazing album. And I would recommend this album to any true hip-hop fan. If you're a hip-hop fan, you've never heard Roots album, jump in with this one. I mean, I think a lot of their albums are great. There's probably other ones you could jump in with, but I definitely recommend this one. Is a great one to jump into to give a true introduction of who the Roots are, what 90s hip-hop really was, what jazz rap was. So overall, I definitely recommend this album. And yeah, man, my rating again is a 4.5 out of 5. So that does it for this review in this episode of the Silent Feedback Podcast. Again, my name is Josh, and going forward, I'm going to be doing again some more album reviews, some more movie reviews. So I hope you all enjoy, and peace out.